2 days into the trial of a suspect in a 2-decade-old Dothan murder case, the legal proceedings abruptly ended this morning when the judge declared a mistrial. News 4's Jacqueline Lambert was in the courtroom. She's been in the courtroom all week. She was there when that order came down. Jacqueline, what do we know?
He ruled that defendant Jessie Jerome Swaine, one of 3 people implicated in the 2007 shooting death and robbery of Dothan businessman Perry Griffin, may not have received a fair trial. The reason is that retired police investigator during his testimony mentioned Kendrick Bryant, the suspected triggerman who police have not formally charged. Defense attorney Arthur Medley immediately demanded that Judge John Steenland declare a mistrial. After conferring with Medley and prosecutors, Steenland did exactly that, sending jurors home with plans to try Swaine again in March. This has been a troubling case with Griffin gunned down as he went to work, and it's taken 13 years to charge anyone. Police believed it was an inside job all along, but struggled to find enough evidence to arrest the 3 men, 2 of whom had worked with Griffin and may have known he carried large sums of business cash, such as the $35,000 he had the morning that he died. While it may seem strange that a person implicated in this crime 6 years ago was never charged, there is a reason Kendrick Bryant, whose name came up in court leading to the mistrial, is serving a 25-year sentence. While not charging him, Dothan police will be alerted to his release, which could be years away, and will charge him then. Bayla?
Jacqueline, thank you so much for following this case all the way through. And tonight, we're hearing from Griffin's family via Wiregrass Angel House. The family issued this statement to News 4. It says the family understands that justice delayed does not mean justice denied. While disappointed, Griffin survivors say things like this happen and promise to remain present and resolute, prepared to wait longer for justice. Kevin Thornton, the 3rd defendant, pleaded guilty in December to a misdemeanor charge in exchange for his testimony against the others.